This is Texans TV. Texans Extra Points is sponsored by Community Coffee, strong as our roots, by Reliant, the official energy provider of the Houston Texans, and by your Houston area Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas. And by Emoji, the official business bank of the Houston Texans.
Who's ready? I'm ready. This is Texans Extra Points, and we're ready for the regular season, but we got one final preseason contest to discuss. Texans and Saints, Drew Dougherty, voice of the Texans, Marc Vandermeer, team analyst, radio sideline reporter John Harris, and the best-dressed dude on the set today, showing us up with a nice jacket, but good to see you.
It's Battle Red Day.
It is.
Yes.
It's always Battle Red Day when he wears that. I like that thing, man.
Get on my level.
Yeah, we are. We're going to get on John's level, and we're going to do some other things, but we start every single Texans Extra Points with some quick hits, and we got to let you know what you're going to see. As always, you'll get keys to a Texans win. We'll also have a few players to keep your eyes on in the game against the Saints, and those two went one-on-one or two-on-one with head coach Deko Ryan. I went one-on-one with Robert Woods, the veteran wide receiver. But let's start by talking about the offense. And fellas, we saw progress from New England to Miami with C.J. Stroud. The rookie quarterback did some things and, moved the ball a little bit better than he did in week one. What is a step forward for Stroud going into and heading into the regular season after a week 3 preseason matchup?
It's put the ball in the end zone, right? I don't need Stroud to throw a 40-yard touchdown pass necessarily, although that would be really cool. How about a 10-12 play, efficient drive, running game, passing game, all cylinders clicking on that particular drive, get it in for 6, and then good night, see you in Baltimore. That's what I want to see.
I love double-digit touchdown drives. What is your benchmark for progress?
I think it's just to quicken everything up for CJ. The throws he made were touch throws. I mean, he made a great throw to Robert Woods on the sideline, but the slant route off the rub route was open. It just had to be a titch earlier. So quicken everything up a little bit, and I think that, plus the operation, I'm going to lay games on 3rd and goal at the 1.
Yeah.
No more of that.
Hey, competition-wise on the offensive side of the ball, what position do you think is the fiercest competitively?
I mean, I think things are pretty set. We thought center at the beginning of the year, but then Scotty went down, and, it's a fait accompli. It's going to be Juice Scruggs at center. So I would probably say the number 3 running back position. Mike Boone's done some good things, but that's really the one that kind of stands out to me, really, is the number 3 running back position and the number 3 tackle spot.
Mike Boone's moved the ball on the ground, catching it as well. What's your fiercest competition?
Well, and with the running backs, health problems throughout the week and last week, and that factors into those decisions. Wide receiver, for me, gets interesting depending on how many you keep, right? In special teams, Frank Ross probably has a vote when you get down to 5 or 6. Do you keep that amount? Because they have some interesting possibilities here. Steven Sims can do some things with the ball in his hands. Obviously had that missed catch opportunity last week, but the kickoff return was great. That's a special teams thing. So I'm looking for that, the back end of that wide receiver group.
Yeah, Sims is a very interesting player because he scored a touchdown on a kickoff return in his career in the NFL. He's run the ball 23 different times. He's not just a wide receiver, but the guy who is a wide receiver is Robert Woods. I had a chance to go one-on-one with Bobby Trees. That's his nickname, and this is a little of that conversation. Always good to be joined by Robert Woods, veteran wide receiver for the Houston Texans. Robert, tell me about playing the Saints. Always you want to win a game. Always you want to exit a preseason game with everyone healthy, but individually, what's the goal for you in this final tune-up before the regular season?
I think this is our last prep going into week 1 and what we want to put on tape and show fans in the NFL what this Houston Texans team is about this year. It would be a really good chance to go against their team. They have a lot of offensive weapons led by Derek Carr over there. And then on the defensive side, a player who's been consistent throughout his career, Cameron Jordan, leading their guys on the defensive side. So seeing a good defense, a good offense, and really just want to go out there and start fast. And it's, like I said, it's our last test, and we want to leave a good impression.
Yeah, Deko Ryan's earlier in the week, he said starters, frontline guys, probably going to play a couple series, and don't know how much the Saints starters and frontline guys are going to play. But on the whole, you're going to see these guys later on in the regular season. You brought up Cameron Jordan. Tell me about this Saints defense, what stands out to you the most, aside from him?
Yeah, I would say a physical group. I want to say their defense has been a great defense for the past years. I think kind of since they kind of had their crew of guys. They've been consistent, know how to get after the quarterback. Secondary has been very sound in getting the ball back. I think it'll be a good challenge for our offense, being able to get these guys to move, get them running, make them play discipline with their eyes, and how we move guys around. It'll be a great challenge. Get started right away, get a chance to go against a good defense. It's going to be a challenge. It's all about us. It's all about what we put on tape. It doesn't matter if they have their starters out here. We're trying to execute our game plan and get done what we need to get done.
Yeah, when you and I chit-chatted before the season started, you were really optimistic about this offense, the direction it's headed. In between then and now, about a month and change, what's different about that idea of optimism? How much more optimistic are you? What are you seeing now that you've been through that makes you pretty excited about what's to come?
Yeah, very excited. Just seeing, honestly, C.J. and Juice. These are our young guys. Juice at the line, making the right reads, making the right points on the plays, run and pass. C.J. being able to be comfortable and confident in the pocket. We have a lot of guys who are surrounding these two young players, and you see it's coming together well. Even Tank as well, coming and making plays. There's a lot of key components to help this offense contribute and be successful. You see guys playing very fast, and it's coming off the ball right away, the first step, and I think the optimism is still there and even growing just because the timing is starting to click. The run plays are clicking. The chemistry has been built, and just starting to feed off of it and going into the year.
Robert Woods, best of luck against the Saints. We really do appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Drew. Thanks for having me.
Four-man front for Houston. High snap. Thompson pulls it down. Here comes Will Anderson. Sack. Fumble. Thompson covers it up at the 11-yard line. Will Anderson with a tremendous sack. Great penetration. Ball came out. Miami got it back, but what a play.
We resume this Texans Extra Points with voice of the Texans, Marc Vandermeer, John Harris from the sidelines, but in between us now, and Drew Dougherty. It's good to be with you guys like always. Hey, Will Anderson Jr. had a couple of monstrous plays last week against the Dolphins. Since he's arrived in May, and especially here in August and late July, we've seen that out at every single Texans training camp practice, and it's basically what we saw the last few years at Alabama. What's got you most excited about the guy that they've nicknamed Area 51, the Terminator, more popularly, I suppose? But this guy is a difference maker, and you see why they move up to 3 to get him, don't you?
I'm a play-by-play announcer. Area 51, the Terminator, I'm in. Let's go. I love watching him operate, and I think the best thing about him is not just the playmaking, it's the man he is. Talking about wanting to know everybody on the defense. I want to know everybody's why they're doing this. So when times get tough, we're all in it together. He's saying things as if he's a salty veteran here. I think he's going to run the locker room eventually. He's that kind of player. No question why they moved up to get him 3rd overall.
And it cascades, you take all that out, just the stuff he does on the field, that cascades over to every single part of the defense, not just along the line, but to the back end, the linebackers, and everything else.
I mean, it has a ripple effect. I mean, linebackers probably don't have to lean his way all that much because they know Will's got it locked down. Offenses are going to scheme him. They're going to double team, or they're going to chip off of him. Well, that's going to leave guys open and available on the other side to win one-on-one matchups, Drew. So the secondary, they don't have to cover as long because Will's getting there. The other defensive ends are getting there as well. So there's a ripple effect all throughout the defense. You just want to be healthy and play at that level all year long.
I know you were super high on him heading into the draft over the last few years, but has he done anything since he got here that's maybe even surprised you?
I think just seeing it up close and personal, seeing how football violent he is with his hands, how powerful he is, how agile he is. And then I think the thing that stands out is how hard he plays every down. It doesn't matter what down it is. It could be 4th down and it could be punt safe, and he's out there destroying the tight end because that's what his job is. That's eventually going to rub off. And when you have that with Jalen Petrie, and you have it with Jimmy Ward, and you have it with Will, and you have it with Christian Harris, now it filters through the entire defense, and now you got the defense you've been looking for a few years.
And kids, this is a non-violent program, but there are many types of violence in the world. Football violence is okay, so that's okay what he's talking about. But let's get back to the question we had in the first segment, and let's apply it to the defense. fiercest position battle on that side of the ball is what?
Oh, that's a great question. I think with everybody healthy, linebacker's pretty tough, and I think D-line's pretty tough. These are the things we've been talking about on Texans radio all training camp long. When you have a lot of numbers in this front seven, how are you going to whittle things down? And I always say sometimes injuries solve the problem the way you don't want it to, but sometimes that happens. So coming out of this game clean and healthy, I think that D-line cut is going to be very difficult. Same with the linebackers. And remember, in a nickel, you only play 2, and they're a nickel an awful lot, 70-80% of the time, whatever the number is. So they're going to have to really be selective here.
He brings up the nickel. Is that your spot, the defensive backfield?
I think it's the third corner, however you want to put it together. I think it's the third corner behind Nelson and Stingley, who that guy is going to be. But I also think linebacker. I think there are 3 guys, I want to say locks, but are pretty close. But after that, I think there's a pretty staunch competition to find out who's going to be the depth behind those 3 linebackers.
And speaking of linebackers, the guy leading this team, former Texans linebacker Deko Ryan, and these two had a chance to go 2-on-1 with the man in charge.
Joining us now, Texans radio head coach Deko Ryan. Coach, no joint practices this week. Let's start there. What went into the decision? When did you realize that was a good idea?
Yeah, after our game on Saturday and just seeing where we were as a team, we got a little banged up, right, as a team. So I just thought for us to go down to New Orleans, it just wouldn't have been as productive as we would have liked to have been. So just for me, it's always about protecting our team and putting our team first. And that's the mentality that I have for our team. And I'm just thankful for everyone else, the support staff and Cal, being on board and being flexible enough to make this change.
Coach, it's often said about film, it's when you watch the film, it's never as bad as you thought. It's never as good as you thought. So as you went back and you watched the film, what were your overall thoughts about Saturday afternoon?
The one thing that keeps coming up as I watch the film over and over again, we have to be able to control what we can control. And it's all of the mistakes that I saw, they're fixable, right? When it comes to the run game on defense, setting the edge, like let's have proper leverage, let's be outside, turn the ball back inside. When it comes to tackling, let's put ourselves in better position, put body on a body and tackle. Offensively, like let's make sure we're IDing the run game properly, targeting the right guys. We can control that communication. We can control throwing and catching the football. So it's all comes back to the fundamentals, right? The techniques that we've been working, the things that we've been stressing over and over again. We just have to do a much better job collectively as a team of taking the meeting room to the field.
Coach, am I right in saying a big plus in staying here this week is practicing the way you want, full control of the total environment, including walkthroughs, right? Because that's a big thing that we don't talk about much, but I know it's big for you guys to show people where to go, how to line up, and you can do it in your own facility at your own pace.
Yeah, it'll be very beneficial. I know we wanted to go to New Orleans and do the joint practices, but, man, it's going to be really good for us to stay here and treat this as a normal in-season week. And it's a good dry run for our coaches, our players to see what an in-season schedule looks like. And the main part of that is a lot of walkthrough. And for me, walkthrough is a chance for you to get that perfect rep and you to bank, like, what does it feel like to do it right every single time? It's slowed down. You get to do it right multiple times. And hopefully just as a memory, you start to bank it. And that's what you start to go back to or revert to when it starts to speed up. Nothing changed about where you're supposed to be, but the detail of the walkthrough is so important to me. The communication, everything is slowed down, gives you a chance to get it right and keep it right throughout walkthrough. So can't have enough walkthrough with our guys.
Sunday night, you'll be at the Superdome. This is a big environment, even in the preseason. And how is that going to help you prepare for Baltimore? Because you'll be in the loud dome, and it might not be as loud as Baltimore on opening day, but it'll be a simulation.
Yeah, very excited about it. The Superdome is always one of the loudest places you're going to play in the NFL. And it's a really, great opportunity for our offense, right, to play in a loud environment. Maybe, like you said, maybe not as loud as Baltimore, but we get to see how we can operate in a loud environment, a different stimulus, which we haven't had before. So it'll be great. This will be a great learning experience for everyone.
I've got one more about the Saints. What about the type of team they are? We talked about the environment they play in, but what about the Saints in general and the kind of challenge they pose? I know it's not a regular season game week and the game planning's not quite there, but you have to face that opponent on Sunday.
Oh, yeah. man, really a lot of respect to Dennis and his coaching staff of how the Saints operate, right? They're going to be a physical football team on defense. Offensively, they're going to run the ball. They're going to try to punch you in the mouth. So you have to be ready, on both sides of the ball. And they're very detailed, right? Their offensive coordinator's been there for a long time. They've been running the same system, but you can tell these guys are really coached well with the Saints on both sides of the ball. So it's going to be a challenge in that regard where we need to improve from this week of owning the details and the smaller, minute details of our job. We're going to be tested on that this week.
Coach, thanks a lot. Good luck this week.
Thank you, guys.
Having a fun time here on Texans Extra Points with Marc, John, and Drew. And before we get into the Saints, the practices, the joint practices that the Texans and Saints were scheduled to have Thursday and Friday got nixed on Sunday night. What do you think the benefit of that has been for Houston in that regard?
Well, I think the week right after the New England game was very taxing, right? You get back at 4 or 5 in the morning. Saturday night, you have a practice, and it was a three-quarter kind of practice. Then Sunday, Monday, the 2 days with the Dolphins, the games. I think it was very taxing, and I think they needed to focus on themselves. Let's coach ourselves in our environment. When you're on the road, it's cool to have the joint practices, but walking through is difficult. You're in a convention center, or you got to take the bus somewhere. Here at the facility, well, you get to use your own stuff, and I think that's a real big benefit as the teaching component comes into play. You have so many young players, you got to get it together.
Yeah, and D'Amico had said, hey, we're banged up. We got to get healthier, too. I mean, that's a component of it all as well.
I mean, it's week 3 of the preseason, week, 5 of training camp. The Eagles and Colts had practices, and all they did was go Mike Tyson on Buster Douglas. I mean, it was just fights on the entire thing. So
Buster Douglas on Mike Tyson?
No, either way, whatever you want to go with. Mike Tyson, Michael Spinks. Either way, point being, there were a lot of fights in that one, and I kind of figured when you get that late in training camp, everybody's ready for the regular season. Let's just do our work at home, get it done, play the game on Sunday, and get ready for the regular season.
Yeah, Derek Carr, somebody you know pretty well from back in the day when he was just sort of hanging around the practice.
Taught him everything he knows as a 6th grader.
I knew that was coming.
Don't know if we'll see him at all or how much of we'll see of him, but we're going to see him later in the season, week 6 here. Derek Carr's impact on the Saints is what to you?
Well, I thought they had some sneaky good wins toward the end of last year as an organization, and I think you throw Carr into the mix with all the other talent they have, and we've talked about it all week. I believe that the Saints in that division, the NFC South, I mean, look what you've got. You got Bryce Young, Baker Mayfield, Atlanta, kind of a mystery, but I think it's between Atlanta and New Orleans. The Texans will see everybody in that division. I think the Saints should be the favorite.
Saints with Carr and that draft that they just pulled off, that's impressive, don't you think?
It is. How many starters do you think the Texans will have, rookie starters?
3 or 4.
3 or 4? How many are the Saints going to have?
3 or 4 maybe?
Maybe not.
No?
None.
Oh, yeah, because somebody, yeah.
Point being, that's an experienced team.
Yeah.
Those rookies are going to be able to supplement what they already have, whereas rookies here in Houston are going to be thrown right into fire. So I think from that perspective, the Saints are a pretty veteran team, now with a veteran quarterback who's pretty solid.
Speaking of rookies, are there any rookies that these guys are keeping their eyes on? Who's your player to watch?
I'm going to go Nico Collins for this reason. I think he's been having a good camp. Got to stay healthy. We say that about everybody. But we all talk about Tank Dell, and he's awesome. But Nico's got to emerge as a reliable, significant threat consistently. I don't know about number 1, number 2, whatever, but I need Nico Collins to be performing every week at a very high level on this team, and I think they'll benefit greatly from that, so I'm watching him in this game.
Good one.
I would have gone with Juice Scruggs if you were thinking about a rookie, but I already did that in week 1 against the New England Patriots, so I will go with the second-year guy. I'm going to go with Christian Harris, representing the linebackers. So I know if there's a position that wants or needs to play better than it did the other night against the Dolphins, Deko Ryan's position of linebacker. That group was not tremendous. It can be better, and it will go as Christian Harris takes it. So Christian Harris is my player to watch.
Good choice as well. I, too, will go with a second-year defender. Jalen Petre's my guy, and why? Because he makes plays. He makes all sorts of plays, doesn't matter where, but he just does it, and he's fun to watch, and that's why I'm going to go with him. Hey, after this break, we got to get into keys to a victory. What will the Texans do to win? Well, these guys will tell us. Don't go anywhere.
Extra Points has been sponsored by Community Coffee, Strong as Our Roots, by Reliant, the official energy provider of the Houston Texans, and by Mattress Firm. the official sleep partner of the Houston Texans.
Marc Vandermeer, voice of the Texans. John Harris, team analyst, radio sideline reporter, and just all-around great guy. You're a great guy, too. I didn't mean to say that you're not a great guy. And I'm Drew. But, guys, it's the Ticketmaster keys to the game. What must the Texans do to pull off a win in New Orleans against the Saints?
There's all this stuff about C.J. and the passing game and Tank Dell and everything else. Run the ball better, all right? And we saw Pierce have a moment or two against Miami. And I don't know about Pierce, or it's the whole thing. The ensemble of running backs, offensive line. Let's see them average 4 or 5 yards per carry. Make life easier on whoever the quarterback is in the game at practice this week. All of a sudden, 4 quarterbacks at practice. But I want to see that kind of efficiency on the ground because that does all the healthy things for your football team. Keeps the ball away from the opponent, makes the passing game easier, better execution, all levels of the depth chart. Let's run the rock.
Run the rock. How about you?
You know I like to get fancy and tell you about X's and O's and all that. I'm going to make this as simple as possible. The biggest key, not only in this game, but for the rest of the season, is one we typically take for granted, but we can't after that game against Miami, and it's tackling. The tackling has got to be an A+ level. It's got to change. The other night, it was probably a C-, maybe a D+ level. The tackling has got to get better. You don't do it in training camp. So the only time you get is in preseason games. You've got to improve the tackling on Sunday and then for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that kind of plays into my key, which is get off the field defense. You got to tackle better. You got to do some other things. 60% they allowed the Dolphins on 3rd down. They were also 2 of 2 on 4th down. Figure out a way to get off the field. Hey, let's get off the show. Marc, thanks so much. John, appreciate you as always. And we thank you for checking us out here on Texans Extra Points. We love talking football, talking about the Texans, and we'll do it again next week. So long.